Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
This is America's Outdoor Talk program.
Are you ready to get rowdy?
Outdoors This Week with your host, Alex Langer. We've got fishing.
Believe me, folks, I have been there, and the fishing has been tremendous.
Hiking.
Adios. Have a nice trip.
Camping.
This is a real adventure.
How do you know?
When you're an experienced woodsman like me, you get a feel for these things.
Oh, really?
Heck, we've even got kayaking.
I'm going to show you kids the time of your life.
We've got all the info you need for a safe and fun day in the sun.
It's a darn good thing we found you when we did. There's something horrible roaming these woods.
And you've got Outdoors This Week. And now, here's your host, Alex Langer.
Well, good morning. Good morning, my favorite ladies and gentlemen here. And that includes you, Lynn. You're one of my favorites, too.
You're one of my favorites.
Well, thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
We are so nice today.
We are.
Listen, today we have a very, very special show. I know I always say that, but today it's true. I'm not pulling your leg today. It's really true. We have with us the brand new Bassmaster Classic champion who won the Classic at Grand Lake in the past week. And his name is Cliff Pace. Cliff has been with us before on this very show, and a lot of times, Lynn, you know.
He really has.
He's almost been a regular here, and I'm glad that Cliff finally won the Classic. You know, he's been so close. Like in the past few years, he's been second, knocking on the door.
Always the bridesmaid.
That's right. Always the brides. Leave it up to you to come up with a feminine kind of analogy. Always the bridesmaid, but never the bride. So Cliff is finally the bride. I should congratulate him on finally being a bride.
Finally being a bride.
So Cliff Pace is from Pennell, Mississippi. He's 32 years old, and there's actually a personal connection here, you know, because when I go down to have a crawfish with my buddy Rob Doherty, who runs the Southern Command Post down in South Mississippi, Cliff's uncle Ray is at those crawfish boils. It sounds very Southern, but his uncle is there, and I know his uncle. That's my connection to greatness. I know Cliff Pace's uncle. So that's it, folks. And speaking of that, we have all of Lynn's favorite Southern gentlemen today, and you know who they are, and most of them are happily married, and some of them have grandchildren, but I don't tell you who has grandchildren.
So I'll still have to say the bridesmaid.
That's right. You'll have to say the bridesmaid. Never the bride, Lynn. Never the bride. They are, of course, Larry Whiteley, Sammy Lee, and, of course, Wade Bourne. And then we have a northern gentleman who demanded top billing. You know how those guys from the north are?
They're crazy.
They're crazy. They're brash. Whatever you want to say. They're not southern gentlemen at all.
Oh, no.
And Ron Linder is that. He's not a southern gentleman at all. He demanded top billing, and we had to put him first. But then everybody else will be on along with Ron later. So stay with us, folks. It's going to be a heck of a show. Don't go away.
Hang tight. More of America's Outdoor Talk program, Outdoors This Week, after this.
Hi, folks. Ron Linder here for Linder's Angling Edge Television. Seen this weekend on a whole bunch of various channels. The Outdoor Channel, WFN, the Pursuit Channel, many of the Fox Sports Net, and a host of broadcast markets. We're being seen all over. Okay, what happened this last week? The Bassmaster Classic, which was held on Grand Lake of the Cherokees near Tulsa, Oklahoma. Interestingly, we had two of our people that I just filmed for a commercial that were in the hunt. Out of the three top leaders at the very end, Mike Iaconelli, Brandon Polanic, I made commercials with both of these fellas just shortly before that. And Cliff Pace eventually won the tournament with 51 pounds, which wasn't bad. All in all, it was a pretty good show. I'm starting to wonder here, and I'm just going to voice my opinion. Now, I've been doing fishing television, including tournaments for nigh on to 43 years now. And here's what I suspect, and I don't know. They were showing everything on a streaming video on. You could get it on the internet. So Nothing is a secret. Nothing that wasn't done. They showed clips of everything that was happened. Now, if you had the Super Bowl, which is the biggest thing in football, and it was all over, you know who won, you knew everything, and then 2 weeks later, you're going to run the program, I'm wondering what in the world with Bassmaster they're going to run the show here in 2 weeks. Even the littlest incident was picked up because they were using what's called a Bass Track system. You knew day by day, but roughly who was leading, etc. The game has changed. Some time ago, when we were working with FLW doing their walleye series, I tried to recommend that maybe we ought to sit there and strictly do at the end, just a recap of what was done, because really there is no anticipation. You're not wondering who did what. You could maybe comment on some of the things that did happen, highlights. In other words, doing a highlight roll. And that's probably what would be done, because I know that it's forever changed now with the internet and with streaming video, and they're doing everything. Anything that was supposed to be known about the tournament, for those who watch, the groupies that watch it, they know it all. And I watched it on and off all weekend. And especially when I had I worked for Lapala, and they had two of their ace men, Iconelli and Polanic, right up there fighting it out for Sydney. Ended up, in the second, third, fourth, as it was. Hank Cherry was a wild card, which made the thing interesting. But at any rate, there will be no surprises after this. Everything that was to be known or brought out by the observers, maybe little things here or there, and I'm sure that they're going to tell you what words exactly they used, but a lot of them was already explained. I saw Polanic explaining what he was doing, and we didn't know so much about Cliff Pace. But anyway, to recap the whole thing, if you were to run the Super Bowl and everything is all done, and you would then really, it's all over but not televised, and you'd run the Super Bowl 2 weeks later, what kind of audience would you get? This is my question for bass fishing. Well, with that, thanks, folks, and see you later.
Weird Laws coming up on Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Have you ever wanted to disappear into the woods? Have you ever wanted to tie your own flies, but never taken the time? Have you ever wanted to speak turkey? Then you belong at Bass Pro Shops. Every week, we offer free skills workshops to help you get started. See the store or go to BassPro.com for more information. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
In Georgia, by state law, you cannot keep any native species of lizard or snake as a pet, with one exception. Venomous ones are legal. You can keep a 6-foot diamondback rattlesnake in your bedroom, but don't get caught with a garter snake. In Kansas, you can possess up to 5 reptiles or amphibians if you have a hunting license. Among the list of acceptable capture methods are deadfalls, crossbows, and poisonous gas. What on earth are they hunting in Kansas? Alaska has lots of hunting and fishing laws already in place, but only one native reptile, the garter snake, therefore, is classified as a game animal. All Alaskan amphibians, meanwhile, are by definition fish. To take a toad from Juneau to Fairbanks requires an Alaskan fish transport permit. Not to be outdone in the mixing up your vertebrates category, though, Louisiana law declares that no alligator skin may be sold without a fur buyer's license. I'm Larry Whiteley, and this is Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Why, thanks for that, Larry. I'll be sure to get my fur trapper's license before I start messing in Louisiana. Listen, we have a guy that's been on with us many times by the name of Cliff Pace. Now, he's from Petal, Mississippi. There's a personal connection here because, as you know, our host, Rob Doherty from the Southern Command Post, is from around there. He's from Southern Mississippi. I was in Southern Mississippi just last year with Rob for a crawfish boil, and a guy by the name of Ray Pace was there, and he is Cliff Pace's uncle. And Cliff Pace, for those of you who don't know, just won the Bassmaster Classic. First of all, Cliff, congratulations. And how does it feel like to be on Mount Rushmore of bass fishing now?
Well, I mean, I really haven't found the words to describe it yet, to tell you the truth. it's a really special deal, to say the least, and it's an accomplishment that I'll carry with me throughout the rest of my time on this earth. But it's very, very special and very dear to my heart, and it's something that I've worked for and wanted since I was a little kid. And to get it all come together last week up in Tulsa is truly more than I can describe.
The rap on you is you've come in second place quite a few times and never quite won the Classic. And I was talking to a buddy of mine who is also part of the program, and he was happy for you. He said, it's nice to see Cliff finally win the big one. How do you feel right now?
I'm definitely on top of the world. This has been a whirlwind ride since the very beginning of the very first day, and It's been a great experience, and there's been a lot of things that have happened throughout it that I'll never forget, small things and big things alike. But, I don't see how anybody could win the Bassmasters Classic and not be really, really happy about it. It's a goal that many of us work for, and I tell you the truth, our sport's a competitive sport, and there's a lot of people in our sport that unfortunately are super talented anglers, and they are very capable of accomplishing what I just accomplished, but it'll never happen for them, unfortunately, because we have one Classic a year, and I'm glad that it did happen for me. It was a very, very unique experience, and it's something that I'll cherish for a long, long time.
You came up second on Hartwell Lake with Alton Jones, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I finished second back in 2008 at the Classic, and then I've had some other Classics where I was in contention and things went wrong. I was in the top 2 or 3 over at Lay Lake in Alabama a couple of years ago in the Classic after the first day, and then kind of had a disastrous second day and never really quite figured out, what happened and what changed. And, we fish these Classics now early in the season. They're in February, and typically they're, on lakes where the water temperature is really cold. And I fished, 3 Classics in February in the last couple of years, and just about every one of them, be it in Alabama or Tulsa, we've been pushed by the weather.
Right.
Even the one in New Orleans, the practice days were pushed by the weather. And it was greatly affected by the weather. The weather was warm there, but it generated a lot of fog. And, the New Orleans Classic was definitely one that I had my sights on, and it was like everything at that event. I think I ended up finishing 11th or 12th, but everything at that event went against what I wanted to do as much as it possibly could from a standpoint from the weather and the conditions that we had. But up at Tulsa, it all came together, and a lot of people have called it, redemption for me, and I guess in a way it is that, but I haven't looked at it from that perspective. Really, it's I looked at it more from a perspective as a gift. I'll never forget receiving. It's
You're right. That's the only way to look at it. It really is a gift. So many things have to come together just right for you to win one. And we got about a minute left before we go to the break. What's the one thing you'll take away from this Classic that you'll always remember?
Well, to try to pick one particular thing would be really hard. There's a lot of things there. The thing about it I remember the most for sure is the final weigh-in and looking out in the crowd and seeing all the friends and all the family that I had there, and all them smiling and all them being, as happy for me as I was for me.
Right.
And for all this to be fulfilled and actually happen in my life, it's special not just for me, but also for them. And I think just the experience of that is probably the number one thing I'll take away from it. There's a lot of people that have been behind me for a long, long time and have believed in me as much as I've believed in myself. And to accomplish what I've accomplished in the last couple of days, really, really means a lot to me, and it also means a lot to them, and I'm glad it's something that we all got to experience.
Cliff, I hear you, and let's take a little break, and then we'll talk about the Classic itself, all right?
Fantastic.
All right.
I'm hooked on hooking up, and there ain't no cure. The only remedy is at the end of my lure. The bigger the better. Break out the headline. I'm hooked on hooking up, and I feel fine. Pacific Blue Ocean.
Wow! Woo. Hold on to that, and that's a good one since 1984.
Tight Lines with Sammy Lee.
Would you like to have some clues on where you can improve your catch this spring?
Hello, this is Sammy Lee. Today, television fishing show host Bill Dance will be here to help explain where and how you can better your catch the next time you're on the water. That and more right after this.
The last thing you want at 5 in the morning is trouble with your boat trailer. That means the first thing you want on your trailer is unique functional products. UFP is America's leading manufacturer of boat trailer brakes and braking systems. So when your trailer's equipped with UFP, you'll enjoy smooth sailing even when you're not on the water. Unique functional products from people dedicated to making things happen.
Usually, if a person lets water temperature be their guide, you can improve your catch of early springtime bass. But there are several places to look for bass at this time of year. And Bill Dance and I were talking recently, and he told me where he looks for the warmer water temperatures.
You know, we've had an extremely cold winter. As a result of that, you know, Mother Nature has a way of taking care of her own. We've had massive shad kills in most of our reservoirs and ponds, natural lakes, soil conservation lakes, our lowland, middle, and even highland type reservoirs. As a result of that, we ought to have tremendous spring fishing. Not the fact that it killed all the shads, but it killed a heavy population of shad, which is a normal occurrence with extremely cold water. A shallow water shad can't tolerate water temperatures much below the mid to low 40s. And when we have those type winters, normally we have a fantastic spring. Sammy, in fishing a lot of, say, our bigger type reservoirs, the place that I first go to is the warmest water areas, and they're normally in the back end of the creeks a third of the way out, whether they be the type of coves that we refer to as hollers or flat type coves. These areas warm 1, 2, or 3 degrees quicker than, say, the main body of the lake. They may even warm as much as 6 to 8 to 10 degrees warmer than the main body of the lake.
So now we know Bill Dance's secret to finding and catching more and bigger bass each spring. You know, after listening to Bill Dance for several years, I've caught more fish by following his advice, and I think you will too. I'll be back with more Tight Lines after these messages, so don't go away. I would like to thank America's most famous fisherman, Bill Dance, for being on the program, and thank him again for sharing some of his insight, experience, and fishing tips with us. I'm Sammy Lee, and until next time, Tight Lines.
Tight Lines, brought to you by FishMate, the ultimate fishing app for your smartphone. By UFP, America's leading maker of brake systems for boat trailers. And by Smart Baits, color changes everything.
Thanks a lot, Sammy. And I emailed back and forth with Sammy just yesterday. You know, he was at the Classic. This is the one year I didn't make it. I've got a gentleman from Petal, Mississippi with us today. He's a 32-year-old Bassmaster elite angler, and he has fished over 90 tournaments. He's been a fishing pro for 8 years. He's got 22 top 10 finishes, 3 first-place finishes. He's fished 5 Bassmaster Classics. But this year, he won the Bassmaster Classic. And first of all, Cliff, congratulations again, and welcome back to the show. I'm going to ask you now about the Classic. How did you win the Classic? You start anywhere.
Well, you know, how I won the Classic was truly based off of patience.
Right.
And I had some pivotal moments, you know, throughout the week. And probably one of the best pivotal moments that I had was in the first 10 minutes of the first day. You know, we launched our boats the first day. We'd had a big weather front come through. Water temperatures had dropped. We had a bunch of snow. And when you get that snow and that north wind, it really drops the water temperature tremendously, especially if the wind blows at night when temperatures are in the 20s. Sometimes you'll have a still night and wind during the day, and that doesn't seem to drop the water temperature like the wind at night does. So the first day of the tournament, we launched our boats, and I tied my boat up to the dock, and we were getting ready to go, and I turned my electronics on, my Lowrance graphs and everything, and I looked at my Lowrance graph, and I almost thought maybe it was broke because it said the water temperature was 39.2.
Wow.
And it had been 47 throughout the pre-practice time.
That's a New England water temperature. That's not Oklahoma.
I was really blew away that it had dropped that much, and I was really concerned about, you know, how the fish were going to react to it. You know, were they even going to be in a state of mind where they were catchable at all anymore?
Yep.
And so when we blasted off, they called my boat number. You know, I obviously went to what I felt like was one of my key areas that I had located in practice. And key areas I was fishing were areas where, you know, the fish would stop coming off the main lake.
Yeah.
You know, we reached a point, you know, in the year where your fish are starting to migrate to where they're going to spawn. Even when the water's in the 40s, they still want to go set up close to where they're going to spawn. And what I was fishing was just off the main lake inside of the creeks on the first thing that each little creek or each little hollow had to offer that the fish could stop on. And every one was different. Some of them would be the first little secondary point just inside the main lake. I mean, just inside the creek. Others would be the first little channel swing. But it was the first thing those fish that were migrating off the main lake could come into and set up on and stage on for the next 2 or 3, 4 weeks until the water temperature warms up and allows them to migrate on back and spawn. If you wanted to label it, it would definitely be pre-spawn, but super, super early pre-spawn.
Right. Pre-spawn.
So, yeah. I went to one of those key little places that I had, and I think on my second cast I caught a 5-pounder.
Wow.
And on my fourth cast I caught a 4-pounder.
Wow.
And what that did, it gave me the immediate confidence to continue to do what I was doing and keep my head down and not get in a hurry and just fish what I knew I needed to fish and take my time fishing it, because it was so important. If you fished fast, you were doomed.
Right.
You know, no matter what technique I was using, I caught a lot of fish on a V&M football head jig. It's a signature series jig that I've won a tremendous amount of money on throughout my career. And then I also caught a lot of my fish on a couple different jerk baits made by Jackal, one being a squad minnow and one being a soul shad.
Right.
But no matter what I was fishing, I had to fish it just in the right little spot, and I had to fish it very, very, very slowly. You know, had I not got a bite off that first place and went to another one and not got a bite, I might have just changed everything I was doing.
Right.
And tried to start over and figure it out again.
Right.
But by getting those bites there and catching a few fish quick, it gave me the confidence to continue doing what I was doing, and I did it for the next 2.5 days, and ended up coming up on top. You know, the last day was a really struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of the hardest days I ever spent on the water. The wind direction changed, and it prevented the fish from setting up where I could get them to bite.
Right.
And you know, when you're only fishing for 7 or 8 bites, and that's really about all I was getting, you know, during each day of competition, and something changes and you can't figure it out. It's really easy to go from 7 or 8 bites in the course of 8 hours to none.
Right.
And I knew that was a potential problem. And finally, the fourth day, you know, I started off pretty good on the third day. I caught 2 pretty quick, thank goodness. And as the day went on, I was there, I was in. I just kept losing more and more confidence in it. I knew the fish were there, but I could no longer figure out how to catch them. And I don't think they were catchable. I tried a lot of different things. But the whole trick for me was never get in a hurry. So finally, at about 12:30, I decided that I didn't have any choice but to abandon the key area that had allowed me to lead the Classic for 2 days.
Yep.
So I left there and I ran to the opposite side of the lake into an area that had some wind blowing into it. And, you know, that wind with the sunshine, you know, it makes those fish kind of get up more on some cover and get more in an ambush type setup.
Right.
When you have those real slick, calm conditions, the fish want to suspend that off the bank. They're not at all in a feeding mood. And when they're not at all in that mode and they're suspended like that, it just makes them almost impossible to catch. So I went to the other side of the lake where I had some wind blowing in on some things I wanted to fish, and you know, still just having to fish really, really slow, but was able in the last couple of hours to get 2 bites and close the deal out. And I think had I not have made that move, it was hard to leave what had got me there.
Right.
But I think had I not made that move, I would have lost the Bassmasters Classic.
I mean, those are the little decisions that you have to make that, you know, separate the men from the boys.
Well, it's very important when you're fishing anything, you know, any time, if you're fun fishing or if you're fishing, you know, for the chance to win the Bassmasters Classic. You know, a big part of fishing is not what a lot of people consider the fishing part. A lot of people think of fishing and they think of reeling the fish in. But when I think of fishing, I think of getting the fish to bite.
Right.
Because that's the first step. If you can't get them to bite, you definitely cannot catch them.
We got to take a break right now. We'll be back for one last segment with you, all right?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, folks, we'll be right back with Bassmaster Classic champion Cliff Pace.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Don't change that dial. Alex will be right back with more of Outdoors This Week after these messages.
It takes a whole lot of fishing to do a little bit of catching. It takes a whole lot of fishing to do a little bit of catching. Well, I remember what my grandpa...
Shooting the boat docks is a deadly efficient way to catch big crappie in early spring. No, not that kind of shooting. I'm talking about a casting technique where you pull back on a crappie jig and bow your rod Then you let go and shoot the jig up under the dock. Wally Marshall, known as Mr. Crappie, says this is a great way to boat some slabs. I'm Wade Bourne, and this is Wired to Fish Radio. Today, Wally Marshall provides more details about shooting the docks for crappie.
More Wired to Fish Radio coming up.
Imagine yourself thrown from your boat. It's cold, so cold that the shock of hitting the water makes you gasp and inhale water. So cold that your muscles can't keep you afloat. So cold that calling out for help becomes an impossible task. Boating fatalities for sportsmen go up when the weather gets cold, and many of us go hunting and fishing. So wearing a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket or float coat is a good idea whenever you're on the water. I'm Wade Bourne, reminding you to boat responsibly.
For more information, visit uscgboating.org.
Cabela's is the world's foremost outfitter for hunting, fishing, camping, and outdoor gear. They offer more gear than anybody, best selection, prices, and quality, all backed by Cabela's legendary guarantee. Shopping with Cabela's has never been easier or more convenient. You can outfit all your needs through Cabela's catalogs, website, and their many stores. Check them out at Cabela's.com. Cabela's, the world's foremost outfitter.
This is Wired to Fish Radio.
Wally Marshall says in early spring, crappie start moving toward their spawning areas, and during this migration, many of them take up temporary residence under boat docks, way back deep where anglers can't cast to them. Make that most anglers, but not Wally. Wally's perfected this presentation he calls shooting the docks, and he says it's easy to learn to do and very productive.
I'm looking for an area to where I have a little clear shot up underneath that dock. And what I'll do is I use a 7-foot Wally Marshall Signature Series one-piece rod. It's a one-piece rod, 7 foot long. But when you grab the lure by the head and you flip your spinning reel and grab that line with your trigger finger and you pull back on that lure, it loads it up like a bow and arrow. And so when you let go of your trigger finger and the lure at the same time and you hold your line parallel with the water where you want to shoot it up on that dock, and you try to get it back into the darkest corners, you can sack them up. Last week, I caught 35 crappie sitting in one spot on one dock. And they all looked like cookie cutters. They was all £1.25 pounds apiece and some of the prettiest fillets you ever laid your lips on.
That's Wally Marshall, and tomorrow Wally returns with more tips on what he calls shooting the docks for crappie. And that's also today's Wired to Fish Radio. I'm Wade Bourne saying thanks for listening and get outside.
Thanks a lot, Wade. And don't tell me to get outside, Wade. I'll go out when I'm good and ready. Listen, we have a gentleman with us by the name of Cliff Pace from Petal, Mississippi. He's a 32-year-old Bassmaster Elite Series angler, and today is the first time he's back here as the Bassmaster Classic World Champion. Cliff, I've got a million questions to ask you and only about 6 minutes to do it. So why don't we just get into it? I'm going to ask you the number one question that people ask you in the next few weeks and months and years. What'd you catch them on?
I caught all my fish this week on 2 different baits. I caught all my fish on a V&M football head jig early in the morning and some throughout the day, but early in the morning with fishing deeper with the football head jig was key. And then once the sun came out, we got a little wind blowing, I would swap over to 2 different jerk baits made by Jackal, one being a squad minnow and one being a soul shad. And the reason I was using the 2 different baits, the soul shad is actually designed as a crankbait, but it suspends perfectly. It has perfect balance, and it gets a little deeper than the squad minnow does.
Right.
And I was fishing those baits in the same areas I was fishing the jig, but it just for some reason I couldn't get them to bite the jerk bait, in the morning periods of the tournament. But they would come up and eat it once the sun came up. I think when the sun would come up, the fish could actually see the jerkbait better, throughout the column of the water, and they would come get it much better.
Let's talk about the football head jig. You mean a bass jig with living rubber on it that's in a football head?
Yeah, it's a football head jig. It doesn't have living rubber. It's tied with a silicone. I mean, it's built with a silicone skirt.
Okay.
And I was using a 1/2 ounce size, and I was just fishing it incredibly slow along the bottom.
Right. What made you go from the jig to the jerkbaits?
Well, the fish would change throughout the day, and I was just trying to change with them just to kind of stay with them and continue to be able to get some bites. I think when the water would warm up a little bit in the afternoon, the fish would slide up in the water column and kind of start to suspend a little bit, and that would take them off the bottom, which made the jig ineffective, but it made the jerkbait very effective. Right. So, I was just fishing with the 2 different techniques as the weather dictated.
How much do you pay attention to the competition, or do you have to shut that out? I know Ike and Ellie and Brandon Polnick were right behind you, and Did you think about them at all, or did you just shut it all out?
I didn't think about that at all. I thought about the job I had to do and what was in front of me, and go out there and get it done in the time allowed. That's the one thing about tournament fishing is you've only got a certain amount of time out there to accomplish it. You got to figure it out quick, and you got to get it to happen while you're on the water before the clock runs out. So for me, it was all focus on fishing and no focus on anything else.
Where are you going after this? You see those commercials, I'm going to Disneyland. Where are you going?
Well, I don't know yet. Right now I'm going home. And I'm looking forward to getting there and seeing all my friends and family face-to-face and getting to shake hands with them and spend some time with them.
Yep.
This is a special moment for them, just like it is for me. And, later in the year as time slows down, who knows what we might do. I would love to at some point this year fulfill one of my lifelong dreams, which has been to kill a big bull elk with a bow and arrow. I'm a very avid hunter, just like I am a very avid fisherman.
You're a hunter as well. You're obviously a bow hunter, right?
Yeah, that's all I hunt with is a bow and arrow. I like the excitement and the challenge that it brings to the table. And I've always wanted to go hunt a big elk, and I think this fall might be my chance to go do that.
Cliff, where can people find you online?
Well, as far as online is concerned, there's a lot of places they can find out things about me. A lot of stuff on Bassmaster.com. It's a great website about me and all the other anglers. And then also I have a fan Facebook page that is Cliff Face Fishing on Facebook, where they can see all the things that I'm currently doing and what I'm up to, and all the great things that my sponsors are doing. The internet is it's a great tool, and the technology today is so overwhelming, it's unreal. There's things out there that I probably don't even know that I'm involved in right now.
I'm from the technology business way back, and there's almost too much technology now. It's almost too good, if you can believe that.
Yeah, it really is. I like to tell people, they ask me all the time about technology, and I tell them the most I know about any one piece of technology is a depth finder.
Now, I know your early fishing heroes were people like Larry Nixon and Gary Klein and Rick Clunn, some of whom have been on the show. What would you say to them right now?
If I could say one thing to any of them, it would be thanks.
Right.
Thanks for the way they carried themselves through the sport and the way they still do. Those guys are still around, and they're still competitive, and they're still accomplishing things and moving forward, and their careers are still very much alive.
Right.
But I'd like to say thanks to them for all the time they spent throughout their career teaching the next generation, which is me, about fishing. There's a lot more information that you can gain now from a fisherman, someone that's getting started, than there was back in their days. You see a lot of younger guys out there right now that are really competitive, and technology is the reason why.
Yeah.
A person can, someone like me or myself or younger than me can learn so much from all the information those guys have provided us with. It's unreal what's at your fingertips if you'll just get out there and look for it and listen to what those guys have to say. They know what they're talking about. They've been in situations before, and Gary and I have a personal friendship. I've got to know a lot of the guys out here that I grew up being looking at as heroes, and I still look at them that way, and I always will. And I'd like to tip my hat to them and thank them for all the time they've spent in their life helping grow this sport, because without all those guys and all the people that have been involved with bass and helped create the Bassmasters Classic, Ray Scott included, and everyone that has it, has control over it now. Without all that, the sport wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't have this opportunity to experience what I've experienced.
Cliff,
and I just want to thank all of them.
Cliff, thank you, and thanks for making time for us today.
Hey, anytime.
All right. Folks, we'll see you next time on Outdoors This Week. Bye-bye.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.